Hello, and welcome to church. My name is Devin Shannon, and I'm going to be the speaker for today. And today we are going to talk about one of the hardest things that we are asked as followers of God. It's very debated questions with lots of answers, and it's also been kind of a problem since the fall of Eden. A lot of people have asked the question with a lot of hostility, a lot of anger, resentment, bitterness. Some people ask out of curiosity, or just admiration of trying to be able to figure out what is going on with this world. And you may even think that asking these questions is a complaint against God, or that you're kind of rebelling against Him because you don't agree with what's going on. But that's not always the case. And the question that everyone asks, you will have to listen to after we get back from a message from our sponsor. We're going to go to Habakkuk, chapter 1, verse 10 to 24, or to chapter 2, verse 4. At kings they scoff, and at rulers they laugh. They laugh at every fortress, for they pile up earth and take it. Then they sweep by like the wind and go on, guilty men whose own might is their God. Are you not from everlasting, O Lord my God, my Holy One? We shall not die, O Lord. You have ordained them as judgment, and you, O Rock, have established them for reproof. You who are of purer eyes than to see evil and cannot look at wrong. Why do you idly look at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up men more righteous than he? You make mankind like the fish of the sea, like crawling things that have no ruler. He brings all of them up with a hook. He drags them out with his net. He gathers them in his dragnet, so he rejoices and is glad. Therefore he sacrifices to his net and makes offerings to his dragnet. For by them he lives in luxury, and his food is rich. Is he then to keep on emptying his net and mercilessly killing nations forever? I will take my stand at my watchpost and station myself on the tower, and look out to see what he will say to me. And I will answer concerning my complaint. And the Lord answered me, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end. It will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by his faith. Now that we've listened to our sponsor's message, did anybody notice the age-old question that a lot of people ask, and that we sometimes have a very hard time having an answer to? So, I think the question that everyone's been waiting for is, what color are my socks? Actually, the real question that a lot of people ask. In verse 13, it says, You who are of purer eyes than to see evil and cannot look at wrong. Why do you look idly at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? Another way of asking this question is, why do bad things happen to good people? And why does God allow all these evil things in this world like hunger, war, disease, death? We might ask these questions because of the injustices that we see around us, or sometimes the injustices that we've experienced ourselves. And a lot of times we don't agree with what's going on. And it's okay to ask those questions. Why would a loving God allow such evil to exist? Why would a God who loves, or who teaches us love, patience, mercy, grace, compassion, why does he allow this to exist? But before I continue, I do want to offer my condolences for anybody who has been through traumatic experiences. They are terrible on everybody, and I wish that nobody had to go through them. And there's been plenty of stories that I have heard, and even myself included, I have experienced many times of going through a very, very terrible process or a grieving process. And sometimes we have to deal with the aftermath of those ruthless people. Your experience sometimes might not be a one-time event, a big catastrophic event. Sometimes it can be the little things that happen every single day or on a regular basis that add up over time, that impact and change the way you see things. For myself, I actually went through one of these, where I went through the lowest of low in my life. And it wasn't that long ago. It's an experience that I find when I share with it, it's kind of humiliating and I'm embarrassed about it. But at the same time is that the story serves a greater purpose. These painful experiences shape who we are and how we view who God is and how he created everything. And it affects how we relate to him and with him. These experiences in our life shape us and then shape the way we relate to God. So you could see him maybe as a police officer, waiting for him to fine you or give you a ticket, or just waiting for the next instance for you to make and do something wrong. Or you could see him as a very hard father, somebody who's really rough, somebody who just doesn't take any no for an answer, or just is not there, distant, that you can't approach. Or maybe you're on the other side of the spectrum where, he's a father you can go to where you see nothing but comfort and grace and love. But all these experiences that we went through in life shape how we see God. And from these experiences, we start to have questions. And those questions can lead to, why does he allow the evil to exist in this world? And the devil also is at our back, trying to keep on talking to us in our ear, saying, and trying to make us doubt who God is and what he said. So there's lots of questions we might ask is, like, why did my friend suffer through that? Or why did I suffer through this experience? What kind of God is it that allows these kind of things to happen to me? And I've heard many times from different people, what is this world coming to? And then at the same time, or you might not, is you might conclude, if this is the God that is in control of the world and who says he loves and cares for everybody, why should I serve him? Why should I care? If this is the job he's doing, I think I can do it better on my own. So the first thing that we need to come to terms with is that we all have expectations that we put on God. Expectations that we want him to fulfill for us. So, if you could picture with me, we're going to take a box, and we're going to take our expectations that we have for God and put those in these boxes. So we're going to say, God, these are my expectations that I want in life. These are the things I want you to do for me. And we're going to take them and we're going to put them into the box. So, I'm going to take my life and, start putting those things in the box. Here's my box for God. And I'm going to say, God, I want to be a heart surgeon when I was younger. And I want to excel in the medical field. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to take my expectation of being a medical professional and put it into the box. This is what I expect. My dream of helping people, becoming a surgeon, so I can lend a hand to the sick and to the hurting. That's my expectation. Put it in the box. Or the other thing is that I want, money so that I can help people when they're in need, or possessions so that I never have to worry, enough food on the table. I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it in the box as well. My expectation. Another thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take my health. I want to be healthy. I don't want to have to go through pain too much. I want to be able to live a very active life kind of idea so that, when I'm 90, I can still have enough time to travel the world, And also so that I can get out onto the golf course and actually maybe part for once. That's my expectation. Put it in the box. Another thing you might want to put in the box is your job. I want to be a bigwig. I want to make the decisions. Put that one in the box too. The job that you want, that demands expectations, you get the highest honor, you get to make all the big money. Those expectations, let's put those in the box. And another thing that we can put in there is your spouse. So, for me, yeah, if I had a wife at a 1 out of 10 and she was 11, put that one in the box too. My children, there's another thing that I can put into the box. My expectation that I want them to grow, be mature individuals, that when they grow up, they also have successful jobs, that they will also have families that are loving, kind. My expectations for my children, I'm going to put those into the box. And then the other thing that I would want to put in the box for myself is my dog. I want to have such a cute dog that people who are allergic come up to it and can't wait to pet my cute dog. Put that in the box too. My expectations that I want God to fulfill for me, put them in the box. We all have these expectations that we want God to fulfill for us. A standard of life that we want to live by that will give us comfort and happiness. We take all these expectations and give them to God with the hope and desire that He fulfills them according to what we want. So my question to you, do you know your expectations for God? Have you thought about it before? If not, I suggest you do. We as Christians have the most all-powerful living Creator on our side. And technically, we should be able to have all these desires fulfilled, shouldn't we? Like, He is all-powerful, and He's on our side. Why shouldn't we have all this good stuff? But before I answer that, let's keep going. There's more. So, from our verse today, I'm going to have to give a little bit of a background, just to have an idea of what's happening. The book of Habakkuk was written before the fall of the Assyrian Empire and just before the rise of the Babylonian Empire. At the time this book was written, Israel, who is God's chosen kingdom, God's chosen nation, had split. They were one, but because of division, they split. Now, Assyria had defeated Israel in the north, and then Judah was also in the south. So later, the Babylonians would come and conquer the south. So Habakkuk was written between this time of when the Assyrians had taken the north and just before the Babylonians had taken the south. The theme question in the book of Habakkuk is, how can God use a wicked nation such as Babylon for His divine purpose? Now, I know that right now we have wars going on between Russia and Ukraine right now, and as much as it is a terrible disaster that's happening, that's not something that we're here to discuss. We want to sit here and focus on what God has to say and what God's message is amidst all of what's going on. So, with today, we start with the passage, the description of armies invading Israel. These attacking men scoff at the rulers and the kings who live behind their walled cities. They laugh at the fortresses and stone walls that are to keep people safe. Now, at that time, without going into too much detail, everybody fought with bow and arrows, swords, siege equipment, none of these fancy cannons, guns. So, if I was a defending king sitting on top of the walled city, now, these walls were about 40 feet tall, 8 feet thick. So for myself, if I was sitting here defending against an invading army, I think I'd be pretty safe. I've got people using bow and arrows and swords trying to be able to attack my city, and I'm 40 feet above them. Not going to happen, in my opinion. But as the Bible expresses, is that actually these people, the people that are attacking me, are laughing and scoffing at me. They're making fun of me. How does that make any sense? It shouldn't be that way. I'm the one who's at a higher position. But the passage reads that they take not only my city, but they also take the next one, just like the wind rushing through. They take my friends, and I can't stop them. They laugh and scoff because they know how secure, how confident they can be, because they can easily defeat us. That's how they are described in this verse. Their ability to conquer cities makes them arrogant. And they are convinced that it is by their strength, by their own abilities, that they can win. And the problem with that is that when we become confident in our own abilities over God, that is when we start to become arrogant like these attackers. When we start trusting in our own accomplishments and our own confidence, our own skills, that's when we start to doubt God's wisdom, God's grace, and God's sovereignty. We decide to make ourselves more important. We decide to say that we can do things better, that we forget about the truth of God. And the reason why we need to be careful of this is because Satan is one of God's creations. And he believes that he's more important than God. Satan has chosen to believe in himself and rebelled against God. Satan still has to submit to God. And he can do nothing without God's approval. If you want to be able to take a reference, read the book of Job, where Satan has to approach God. And God says, this is what you're allowed to do. You cannot do anything different. Satan has been given authority over this earth at this time and is allowed to go anywhere and everywhere he wants to. That has been given by God to him that he's allowed to do. And the thing is, though, Satan as well laughs and scoffs at us and every single person in this world because he knows how easily he can conquer us because he's been around for so long. Satan believes that he is superior to everybody, including God. So he mocks everybody. He laughs at them. And he attacks every single person, every single day, until you submit. There will be times in your life when you feel like you are strong in your faith and that you are confident that nothing will defeat you because you got Christ as your strength. And that you've put your trust in Jesus Christ and that you've done everything that he said in the Bible. And even with all those things, even with that faith, even with that belief that Christ is in control, we can still go through terrible experiences. And we may feel like our world is crumbling. But God hasn't abandoned us, and he's also told us that he has planned it for the good of those who love him, according to his plan. So you might be asking that, as a Christian, should I be going through these terrible experiences? Should I be going through these troubles? You might want to say, you know what, I'm a Christian. I should be blessed. I should be like the nation of Israel where I get to be blessed and I have no troubles in life. Why is this happening to me? In Ephesians 6, it gives us an idea of why this is happening. Because it says in there that we are in a struggle. It's not against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, against authorities, and against the powers of this dark world, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly realms. Satan is described in 1 Peter 5:8 as the adversary. He is the adversary, the devil, who prowls around like a roaring lion, seeking everyone to devour. He will fight until his last breath to defy the name of God. But the good news is that Satan will be defeated. And the thing is, though, that even though Satan is that arrogant, he also knows he's going to lose because it's been written down in the Bible for thousands of years. Satan doesn't want to accept it. We have the reassurance of God, or by God, through Jesus, that God will defeat Satan. Because it says in Romans 16:20, is that Satan will be crushed underneath Jesus' feet. God has clearly revealed in Scripture what will happen to everybody. And we have the choice to believe in God and believe in His Son, Jesus Christ, or we have the choice not to believe. Satan has rejected God and is now going to live with consequences because of that choice. So in Habakkuk 1:12-17, God is described as, Lord, you are the everlasting, and you stand above your creation. O Lord, my God. Habakkuk realizes who he's talking to and understands that God is above creation. God is holy and completely set apart and over and above everything. There is no one beside him. There is no one that will ever come close to him. And no one has more wisdom than God. In verse 13, it says, you who are of purer eyes than to see evil and cannot look at wrong, why do you look idly at traitors and remain silent when the wicked swallows up the man more righteous than he? The thing is, though, God does not like evil. He can't stand evil. His perfect, holy nature cannot be in the same place as evil. That is why, as a Christian, is that you can't serve both Satan and God. It's because God will not tolerate evil. And be reassured that as followers of Christ, is that we will prevail. The Lord has allowed evil as judgment and establishes reproof. And does he mean that he's taking out his judgment on you or on the people that you care for? No. 1 Peter 5 says, verse 6, therefore humble yourselves underneath the mighty hand of God, so he may exalt you in the proper time. Having cast all your anxiety on him because he cares for you. Be of sober spirit, be on the alert. Your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking to devour. So, resist the devil. Be firm in your faith, knowing that the same experiences that you are suffering are being accomplished by your brothers and sisters who are in the world. After you have suffered a little while, the God of all grace, who has called you to his eternal glory in Christ, will himself perfect, strengthen, confirm, and establish you. When we start to doubt the nature of God, we allow the devil to have a place in our minds. We start to go down a very difficult path when we allow the devil a foothold to have us start doubting God. God has revealed himself and his character in the Bible, and we need to trust what he says. So God has bigger plans than we can imagine, and we need to take our box of expectations and a lot of times set them aside and say, God, you know what? I'm going to be obedient and submit to your authority because you have a better plan for me. So we're going to move on to the next verses on chapter 2, 1-2. And you might also, reading these, think that Habakkuk is doubting God. So in the verses it says, I will take my stand on my watchpost and station myself on the tower and look out to see what he will say to me and what I will answer concerning my complaint. So Habakkuk is taking his job seriously. He is not, sitting in his lazy boy, eating potato chips, watching TV, waiting for the enemy to come, and then just all of a sudden, oh, hey, the enemy's here. No, he's taking the active approach as a watchman does. He is making sure that he stays aware and is trying to be a parent, or trying to be able to keep a lookout for Satan and for the evil that's in this world, because that's the job of watchmen. They are there to protect the people that are in the city that need to be kept safe. So he is actively watching for the enemy to defend against him. And Jesus has revealed who God is so that we can identify who the enemy is. Maybe many of you still know the saying of, know thy enemy. And it's definitely accurate in this case. Even though Habakkuk questions God, he also understands that God is in control. That nothing happens outside of God's control. Because in the chapter 3, verse 2, Lord, I have heard the report about you, and I was afraid. Lord, revive your work in the midst of the years. In the midst of the years, make it known. In anger, remember your mercy. So Habakkuk is asking, why is he allowing evil to win? But he knows who God's character is, so he doesn't doubt. He asks the questions because he doesn't know what's going on, but he has the trust and the faith that God will follow through with what he said. Habakkuk has an expectation of how his life is, but asks, why is it different? And then the verse that follows up is that he waits for the response from God to see how he can correct himself. He's trying to be a faithful servant, watching out, trying to make sure that he's doing the right thing. We also need to be faithful with our resources, our time, our skills. But a lot of times we lose focus because we keep on looking around us at other people saying, well, why do they have more? Why does this person have $1 million and I have to struggle to survive? I mean, they curse you, God, but I praise you. Why am I struggling? Why am I having a hard time? But like Habakkuk, we need to stand faithful and true to what God is going to do, because his character never changes. And we need to pay attention that sometimes when our expectations aren't being fulfilled, or the way that we see things, or the way that we want things to be, it doesn't mean that God doesn't have a bigger plan. Because like I said, in the last part of it is that Habakkuk waited to see what God would say to him so that he might have to change his viewpoint, the way that he has to respond. And a lot of times, we don't wait for that. Sometimes we'd rather have our say in it. We'd rather have what we want to say and expect God to fulfill it. Maybe what we need to do is actually express to God, this is what I'd like, but what do you have in store for me? Because I know that you have the perfect plan. I know you have a good plan for me. So Habakkuk knew his place. And this is what I want to be able to have people say, and this is what I want people to have to hear, is that believe that God is in control and completely trust in his process. It's not an easy task, and it could be that you expect a certain outcome, and it's very hard to trust God with the outcome. And then moving on to the next part. In Habakkuk 2, verse 3, God answers Habakkuk. Now, one thing that I would really, really like to be able to hear before I pass is the voice of God coming down and speaking. Not through, his spirit or through somebody else. I mean, just picture this if you can, is that you're, say, going for a hike in the best place that you could ever possibly imagine. So for myself, I'd say mountaintop, looking down over a very beautiful, picturesque valley with a river running through it. And then all of a sudden, you hear from above, "Devin, this is God." And I'd be really, really scared or wondering who's playing tricks on me. But that is one thing that I would look forward to, is having a conversation with God. And I know that I will have it later on, but still, even on this word, it would be pretty cool to have happen. But that's exactly what happened with Habakkuk, is that God spoke to him. And it wasn't anybody that's famous or whatnot. It's the God, creator of this world, who made everything. And what he said to Habakkuk is, write the vision, make it plain on tablets, so that he may run who reads it. For still the vision awaits its appointed time. It hastens to the end, and it will not lie. If it seems slow, wait for it. It will surely come. It will not delay. Behold, his soul is puffed up, but it is not the upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. Now, it does continue from there, but that's where we're going to stop for today. God is telling us that it will happen. He is saying that the vision, Habakkuk, that you are going to see, you're going to write it down, make it plain, write it in stone, write it so that it can't be changed. And that's what God is saying, is that it will not be changed. It is going to happen. That's what this means, is when you write it on tablets, is that it will not change. And then not only that, is that they're taking a runner and saying, okay, now anybody who reads this, that they can have the reassurance that it's going to stay the same, that it's going to be like that. But the thing is, though, the vision is needed for a certain time. It's not going to happen when we want it. It's not going to happen when it's convenient. It's not going to happen when we're comfortable. It's going to happen at God's perfect time. So our expectation of when we want things to happen in our time, when we want it to, I'd rather leave it to God, who does know the time, who does know the perfect time. So, if it does seem slow, wait for it. He is telling us right now is that it will surely come. It won't delay. And we just need to trust that that is the case, that that is what it says. And a lot of times, that's sometimes what we just need to hear from God, is that it will come, that everything will be fine, just wait on me. That all you need to do is just trust in my process, trust in how I can do it, and just wait for me. Because I know a lot of the times, including myself, I'd rather get it done now. I'm very good at doing things my own way, and very, very hard for me to just wait and be patient. And that's a lot of times what life is all about, is just waiting on God's timing to allow Him to do things in His timing, because then that's when we can see Him get the most glory instead of us. And that's what our life is all about, is giving God glory in His timing, in His effort. And then moving on to the last verse, number 4, behold, his soul is puffed up. It is not upright within him, but the righteous shall live by faith. Again, another one, not easy to accept. And the reason for that is that a lot of the times is that we want to say that we're the one that's good enough. That sometimes we deserve what's coming, or that we've worked hard, that we've earned it. But that's not the case with what he's saying here, is that the righteous shall live by faith, and there has been no one that's righteous, no, not one. There's only been one person who's been righteous, and that's Jesus Christ. So, for us to be righteous is that we need to accept what Jesus Christ has done on the cross for us. Then, because of our faith in Jesus and accepting the fact that we are not righteous, and accepting that Jesus is, and then saying, Jesus, you told me that I can be righteous through you, through my belief, through your death on the cross, and accepting your sacrifice for myself. That's how I can be righteous. And it's all through faith. You don't do anything to deserve it. You didn't do anything to earn it. It's all through believing in what he said. It's all through believing what God did, who his character is, what he said he's going to do, what he's going to continue to do, all through his son Jesus. So the righteous live by faith in Jesus Christ. So when we come to our box of expectations, probably the best thing to do is take the expectations, flip them upside down, dump them on the ground, and then throw the box away. And the reason why I say that is because if you take God and try to put him into a box and say, this is how I want you to work, you're pretty much saying to a genie, saying, you have to grant me a wish, but you can only do it how I want. Kind of doesn't make sense. Or the other thing is that you take a really big cup of water and then you pour it into a thimble and say, I should be able to get all this water into this thimble. When we take our expectations on God and try to force them into our small way of seeing things and the small way of doing things, is we're pretty much limiting God on what he can do. We're saying that this is the way that's comfortable for me. This is the way that I want to do things. I want you to accommodate me. So when we take away those expectations, when we sit back and say, wow, I didn't realize I had that expectation on you, God. That's when God will actually show us what he's capable of doing. And then you can also run with the reassurance that because of what he's written in there, is that it will come to pass. We may think that it's slow in coming, and we might not like what's going through it, and I don't like people going through it. God reassures us that it will happen in his time, in his perfect presence. So, the next time that you're going through a very difficult circumstance, probably the best thing to do is get down on your knees and pray to God, saying, God, how do I see you in this? And how do I work through this? Can you show me? Can you bring me comfort? Can you help me get through what's going on and help me to see your grace and mercy in this? Because the experience that I went through, my lowest of lows, happened last year. And I will admit that there has not been one time ever in my life, up until that point, where I have ever experienced God to that degree. I now have a good baseline of who God is and what he's capable of doing. And I sure hope that for the next 40, 50, 60 years, however long he chooses to keep me alive, that I continue to feel that presence, that reassurance, that comfort every single day for the rest of my life. And I really want other people to experience it. And it's not easy. But I found that when I took my expectations for him, and I threw them away, my expectations, and just said, God, I try to trust you, I want to trust you, that's when he started to show me what he can really do. So I ask you again, what are your expectations for God?